Hello, friends, and welcome to patch 7.28c. This is a really small one. It's mostly nerfs to all the most broken heroes. Here's a quick look at it. I'm actually not going to read all these to you, but I want to give a quick support perspective on some of these changes, which means I probably will end up reading it all to you. Okay, so first, I think Batrider. This is kind of big. The reason Batrider became popular is for like two reasons. One, the ancients started to take less, or they took more magical damage. So it's like, okay, that's cool. And sticky napalm used to do half damage to anything that wasn't a hero. And then they changed that. They nerfed the ability a bit to balance it out, but they made it do full damage to everything. So now he just farmed way faster, and he could farm ancients. Too busted. They nerfed the ancients part. Then we saw he was still really good. Now they are officially nerfing the creeps part, which means it's back to what he was before 7.28 with some additional nerfs to sticky napalm that are still here. So for example, it used to be 10 extra damage at level 1. Now it's only 6 extra damage. So before, even with the 6 extra damage, because it was full damage, 3 stacks on a wave at level 1 was a extra 18 damage. Now it is only 9 damage. And that's, I mean, obviously, that is a lot less. That's a big deal for last hitting. He has to use way more mana to put more stacks to do the same damage, which also gives the enemy more magic stick charges. So it feels like Batrider's just a lot worse now, which means we might start seeing some carries who were bad against Batrider picked up a little bit more. People like, oh god, I'm not a carry player. Monkey King, I feel like was bad. Ursa, a lot of melee heroes. Some weak ranged heroes too, like Drow, kind of. I think Drow's kind of bad against Batrider. I feel she is. If he gets on top of, I know she has the silence, but like she doesn't want to take that. And if he gets on top of her, she's like dead in the early levels. But anyways, whatever heroes are bad against Batrider, they're gonna start rising in popularity. Let's get back to that in a little bit. In terms of supports, I just think that means we'll see less Batriders, which means it should be less oppressive when you play against Batriders. Well, actually, you'll feel the same level of oppressiveness, but his last hitting should be worse, and you should get more magic stick charges if he tries to last hit with sticky napalm, which should make your game against Batrider easier. And if you're a treant player like me, this is also kind of nice because I hate getting counterpicked. Let's move on from Batrider first for now, though. Let's come back to like the whole meta idea later. Beastmaster just got nerfed. The boars, this is the big part. Level 1 boars have 30 less move speed, which means what you have to do against Beastmaster when you're support, if you can, not every support can, but you want to quickly kill his boars. And it was tough because they're so fast. They slow you and they're fast, which means aggressively you're trying to run away and this boar's like, pew, pew, because he was so fast. But now, with that slower move speed, he might attack and you might be slowed, but because the attack animation's kind of long, it means you might get further away. You will, not might. You will literally get further away from the boar between attacks, which should help you escape a little bit better. But on the defensive side for the boars, it means when you're chasing them, they are just slower, and it should be easier to kill these boars now, which is what you really need to do against Beastmaster. Later on, they're back to the same old boar. Beastmaster will be a little worse, but like the boars and the necro books are why Beastmaster is good. It's not so much his own attack damage, even though that is, of course, a little bit of it. Earthshaker, I like this change. It's only half stun on the shard now. I think Earthshaker's still good, but I think it now gives him a choice. He has to choose to stay safe, stay far back, and stun for half the duration, or he has to run in, put himself in danger, but get the full stun like he used to have to. So it's still good because you have the option to stay back if you need to, or you like fissure some people and then blink to a different target and full duration stun there, but then back at your fissure, you still do half stun there. That's still kind of good. And of course, you still have the free pathing. So I feel like Shard is still pretty good, but depending on the game, like if you really need the full duration stuns, maybe you won't pick up Shard, because the build was like Tranquils, Blink, Shard, like almost every game. So now I think it's more likely that maybe they'll pick something besides the Shard. But if they pick the shard, it's just going to be a little worse. Still good, but a little worse, and I think that's fair. It means he has to put himself in danger a little bit more often now, or get a reduced stun, either of which is ideal for the opposing team. So yeah, I think you can still play him, just not as like pro teams will not always first phase this guy. You know, they might actually pick some other position fours a bit more. Not that every team was playing him, but he was really good. Okay, Keeper of the Light. This recall change nerfs it for fighting. Like if someone buys back and try to recall them in the early game, or for whatever reason you're just trying to call someone in these 2 extra seconds, Coddle might die, or the fight's just different because 2 seconds can be a lot. It's a strict nerf to that. In terms of just relocating people to farm, though, the extra 2 seconds doesn't matter that much. So I still think Coddle is probably just as good as he was in most other regards, but you just might see him be a little worse in terms of early fights. I think in our pub games that doesn't matter. I know I'm really bad about using this for fighting, so I don't know if I don't know how often that happens to you guys. Lycan a little worse, not a huge deal. Morphling, I didn't really expect this nerf, to be honest, but I think it is a nerf a bit to like his combo with like Earthshaker, the scepter range going down, and the increased cooldowns a bit. I kind of feel like it pushes Morphling to be a mid hero a little bit, because mid Morphling makes use of this earlier reduced cooldown on the ult, but carry Morphling just farms the whole time and doesn't care about this. But it is a nerf to the hero, at least until he buys an Ags, if he's going to buy an Ags. And Ags is not the best right-clicking item for a carry Morphling. So it kind of makes him choose, like, am I going full-on right-click? Then, like, but I need to buy this Ags? That's not a very good right-click item. But before, he was, like, getting a lot of benefits out of his ult, and I don't know. I don't know how to fully explain it because I'm not a full morph player and I don't know if I'm fully understanding it, but it kind of feels like if you want to use the ult to make like a bunch of like sick plays and you need a scepter as well to do it, then it feels like you're more of like this spell casting morphling. And if you're this carry morphling who is like doing mostly right clicks, you have a higher need for the Ags to get the full benefit out of it, which might push you to be more like, okay, forget doing all that teammate spell casting stuff. I'm just gonna go like full right click or like full personal carry and not need the scepter. And now it needs to be like a really good teammate or later in the game to get the scepter. I don't know if I'm like properly interpreting that though, guys. I'm not a morphling player, so we'll see. Treant just a little worse because the shard was really good, and now they're gonna attack a lot slower. So yeah, it's fine. Nyx was being picked like first phase all the time. He was like way too good because Vendetta, for a lot of benefits, but Vendetta did apply break. And now that means Nyx is going to be worse against heroes that you wanted the break for. So like Bristleback and Timbersaw are 2 that come to mind. Of course, there are other heroes, but let's just like those, let's say. They are relatively meta heroes, and then Nyx was just good against them because he had a break. And now he's not. Which means at the pro level, they're going to have to consider that a little bit more. You don't just get a first pick Nyx and guarantee like almost a good game every time. He'll still like, because you didn't always need a break. And so like Nyx is going to be the same in those games with a slightly longer cooldown on Vendetta. But in games where break was a big element, it does feel like Nyx is not going to be as good. In your pub games, I think if you want, you could still first pick Nyx, but don't expect it to be as good because heroes where you want break are fairly common right now, especially with like Bristleback and Timber. That's why they come to mind. If you play pub games, you probably deal with a lot of PAs, you know. Those passives which were really nice to break, and Nyx just doesn't have a break anymore unless you buy a Silver Edge. So you Vendetta, stun, Silver Edge, break them. But don't do that. That's not very good. OD, lots of like little nerfs. I think that this is just harder now because this Arcane Orb is longer cooldown. It means you can't use it for free harass, free stuns all the time. And because the Arcane Orb can activate the passive, it means he'll have a harder time proccing his mana restoration, which means he might have a harder time with this 30 mana cost, which may not seem like a lot for a hero like OD, but I think it actually is with this change to the Arcane Orb. So I think this should just be like a a little worse of a hero. Still probably pretty good, but not like first phase pick worthy all the time. Puck, just a lot of like small nerfs as will hurt the farming of Puck. Puck was just like really good in a lot of different things. I think the Ags nerf is not too bad, but it is kind of fair because Puck was just like so strong in like a ton of different regards. So it has a lot of like little nerfs, and I think that'll just make Puck generally worse. Ricky, Ricky was rushing Battle Fury Ags in a lot of his games. So I kind of feel like that's still probably the build, but it'll just be not as good. So maybe people will do a different build then. But I feel like what Ags gives him is still pretty good. So we'll see. The level 25 talent wasn't the reason. Like, Ricky came online with the Battle Fury and earlier, but his late game was pretty crazy with this talent. So it should... At a high level, this talent doesn't make that much of a deal, I feel like, because many games don't go to 25. But at lower ranks where they do drag out, I think this will make a pretty big difference for you guys. Shadow Shaman, I think this is a pretty small nerf. You can still play the hero if you want, but it is a slight nerf. Void Spirit, same deal. Slightly worse laning. Felt like this hero was just a little too good in all regards, and he might still be, but at least his lasting will be a little worse. Then Wraith King. This combo, so like first off, Vampiric Spirit, the skeleton's having less damage, means he's going to farm a little slower. And then the Wraith Fire Blast, this thing used to be like 8 seconds at all levels. It's kind of crazy. It's now 17 seconds at level 1, which means Wraith Kings, if they want to fight with stun a lot, they might actually have to level it up. They can't just like take that one value point. I mean, maybe they still can, but it's just going to be straight up worse. 3 seconds worse, to be exact. A lot of the times, Wraith Kings were maxing Vampiric Spirit and his... crit first, which means Wraith Fire Blast, you didn't even get leveled till way later. Which means you're stuck at this like 17-second stun. Cooldown stun. God, can you imagine a 17-second stun? That's crazy. The 17-second cooldown, which makes him just worse at fighting. So, having run through all these, what does it mean as a support player? Well, with Nyx being a lot less common, Nyx is really good against damage over time heroes and anyone with a channel. So like Crystal Maiden, really hard to ever get a good ult off because of Carapace. And he might just straight up kill you because Crystal Maiden's pretty low health, right? And he had a lot of burst damage with his spells. So that means anyone with a channel is a little better. So like Crystal Maiden we mentioned, Witch Doctor, who else? I mean, technically, like, you know, heroes like Tinker, Anti-Mage, who didn't like dealing with AM. It's harder. God, there's so much to like Dota, right? These carries become popular, so these carries, whatever. But at least for now, on the supports, it does feel like anyone with damage over time, like I know Jakiro is really annoying to play against Nyx because he can just stun me whenever he wants. It feels like a lot of those heroes are going to be a little better. You're more likely to get your channels off, and not just get killed by, or not have it ruined by a Nyx. So there's that. I think Coddle still feels fine. Which, I don't know, if you're a Coddle player, then it's fine. Oh, so if you're a Nyx player, you might just want to play less Nyx. I think you could still get it to work, but yeah, you might just play him less. He's just not going to be as good, I feel like. Coddle, I think you could still probably play for the most part. I'm trying to think about who you pick to play against Coddle. But because I think he's fine, I think, you know, I don't know if it matters. Earthshaker, same deal as like Coddle. I think you can still pick him, but he's probably... This feels like a bigger nerf than this recall nerf. Beastmaster, you should have an easier time playing against. So anyone who is weak to summons before, you might still be weak to summons. You have to be able to kill the boar, pretty much, and you should have an easier time killing the boar. If you had like no ability to kill the boar at all before, then I don't know if the boar being slower really changes that. But anyone who was good at like almost killing the boar and then like needs a little bit more damage, this slow should be enough to get in that like 1 or 2 extra auto attacks to kill off the boar. Anyone who was scared of Batrider, or if you felt like you had to play Oracle, Abaddon, Omni Knights, those supports with dispels to deal with the potential Batrider, like you don't have to do that nearly as much anymore. Like I really feel like we're not going to see as much Batriders. I mean, it might for a little bit while people like play it out to see like how bad does this feel, and then it's like, oh god, it feels really bad. I'm not gonna do it anymore. So for the next few days, you might still see it, but then after that, I really do expect it to drop off. Then who else? Is that everything? I mean, Nature's Prophet a little less. OD, Puck, Voids, these guys that are a little less. Actually, I will say, because Pucks and Voids, Puck, Void, even OD in a way, these are like really active mid heroes who you hit 6 and then suddenly you're going around killing people. Which means if they're being played less, if you still want a hero like that, you might have to go for like Ember. Not really SF. Who else is like very active? Maybe Quap, maybe Storm to a degree. But like Puck and Void Spirit felt like just these like really strong active heroes, which means you might see less activity from your mid laners now, with less picks from less Void Spirits and Pucks in your games. Which means if you're a 4 player, you may want to pick someone a little more active, unless your team's like totally chill being super passive. But like if it's not coming from your mid laner, you know it's not coming from your carry player, and you know a lot of your games your off laner picks another carry. So if you want someone active in your team, you may need to pick these active 4s now, like Tusk and Clock. It might be harder to play someone like Caudle in the 4 position, because if you play Caudle 4, you need someone else to be active. And maybe it'll still be the mid laner. You might still get Pucks and Void Spirits, but just a little less. That's my thoughts on that. Let's fly. And Ricky, the nerf to Ricky might also make channeling heroes a little better. Just because Ricky's good against channel heroes because the smoke screen. I don't know, and then he kills you with tricks of the trade while you're sitting there channeling. So with this being a little worse, maybe it's a little easier. And actually, a lot of these heroes are good against channeling heroes, actually, like Void Spirit and Puck, and OD. So, yeah, get your Witch Doctors ready. Get your... Witch Doctor, actually, he combines a lot of these things. He's got the channel. He's good against these summons. So, well, actually, if the summon heroes aren't good, do you even need to pick Witch Doctor anymore? Because of the casks? Not so much. But you still have the Maledict to be good against like certain tanky heroes. That's kind of good. In terms of thinking about carries, I'm not as good at this because I'm not a carry player. But I feel like if you were bad against summon heroes, because like NP, Lycan, and Beastmaster, these are like the 3 most common summons heroes. If you were bad against them and scared to pick certain heroes because of that, it might be easier to pick them. If you were a carry that was like bad against Batrider, you might be more willing to pick it now. And because I'm not fully sure who all those carries are, it's harder to then predict what supports will also rise. But if you want to think about it and you want to theory craft with like friends, certainly feel free. But like if you're more willing to pick a Ursa or Monkey King because you're not so scared of Batriders anymore, that means like Timbersaws aren't as good, because Timbersaw, well, actually, it kind of depends, but like Ursa and Monkey King had the ability to bully out level 1 Timbers, and it was kind of scary to pick Monkey Kings and Ursas because there was like a random chance in pub games that the enemy picks a Batrider. And now you're not going to be so scared of that. So now you're more willing to pick those heroes again, and as a support, that means like we have to be ready to deal with that. So we might see more like Ursas, more Monkey Kings, for example. And then you're going to want people who are good at kiting. So like Venomancer maybe makes Ursa and Monkey King's lives miserable. So we'll have to see how all that plays out. But yeah, start thinking about that if you want. You know, if you just like to see it play out and then you pick those heroes, that's fine too. But that's what I'll be thinking about. But I won't drag this video on any longer while I just sit here quietly and think. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I'm excited to play this patch, even though it's like it seems like a small nerf, but like it is a small patch. But because all those heroes were so good, like those were the heroes everyone was playing, I feel like we should see a lot more variety now. Like I think a lot of heroes aren't bad, but those heroes were just like the best. And so anytime we get to these like later like numbers and letters in the patches, like we're at 7.28C, it feels like the game starts to like become more open and not so like only play these 10 heroes kind of game. And that's like, it's not so fun for me, you know? Because I never play meta heroes. Like, when was the last time Treant Protector was super meta, guys? not. One was like Jakiro, you know. So for me, it's better when like the patch tends to open up. And for a lot of you guys, because there was only like 10 heroes that were like really good. It felt like this should open up a lot of other stuff like Dazzles, and Maiden was already kind of good. I don't know. A lot of these other supports should open up, in my opinion. All right, now for real, done. Thank you. Thanks, guys.